Now what we're going to do is we're going to lay out the story in the simplest form. And we do this by creating almost bullet points. So we're going to create a bullet point story. What we want to do is we want to create each step of the story in just a single line or a sentence. This is, again, it's laying out our template for a story. So, to create our bullet point story, I want you to think of how you can identify the elements that move the story on. We're going to create one-sentence descriptions of the moments of your story, but we're going to concentrate on nailing the action points. Action points are moments where the story changes or advances. An example of this is Cinderella. So, what's the story of Cinderella if we told it in bullet points, highlighting the action points? Bullet point 1. Cinderella is a beautiful girl who lived long ago. 2. Her mother is dead. Her father is a weak man. 3. And here's an action point. Her father suddenly marries a widow with 2 daughters. Okay, can you see how the story's just changed and advanced? And the next one. The stepmother is cruel and Cinderella is treated like a servant and made to cook and clean. Next one. The stepsisters are dressed in the finest clothes by the mother, but are still ugly. Though dressed in rags, Cinderella is still beautiful. Next bullet point, and this again is an action point. There is great excitement when it is announced a grand ball is to be held at the palace. Okay, so can you see how the story's changed? Suddenly there's been a new introduction to the story. Next bullet point. After major preparations, stepmother and the ugly sisters set off for the ball. Cinderella must stay home and clean. Next one, again another action point. Cinderella's fairy godmother appears and announces, "You shall go to the ball." Okay, can we see how the story suddenly changes? Next bullet point. Cinderella states she has nothing to wear. The palace guards will only turn her away. Next bullet point. Fairy godmother waves her wand. Cinderella's rags become a beautiful dress. Glass slippers appear on her feet. Next bullet point. Cinderella fetches a pumpkin, which the fairy godmother turns into a coach. She turns mice into horses and coachmen. Next bullet point. And now this is an action point. Now Cinderella leaves for the ball. But her fairy godmother warns she must be home by midnight or the magic will reverse. Next bullet point, and again this is an action point. At the ball, Cinderella dances with the prince who is smitten. Then she hears the clock strike midnight. And again, next one, and it's an action point. Cinderella flees from the arms of the prince, but loses one of the slippers. Next bullet point, the prince finds the slipper. He is in love. Next bullet point, and again this is an action point. Now the prince and his servants try the slipper on every girl in the land. It doesn't fit. Next bullet point, the prince arrives at the last house in the land where the 2 ugly sisters try to force their feet into the glass slipper. Cinderella steps forward and, despite the stepmother's protest, tries the slipper. It fits perfectly. The prince realizes he has found his dream girl. Last bullet point, they marry and live happily ever after. Now we've broken down Cinderella into simple bullet points and nailed where the action points are, where the story changes and advances. That's going to be your action list. I want you to do that with your story. Can you take your idea now and break it down into bullet points? Look for the moments where the story advances and changes and highlight those. Can you make those changes visual? Okay. Make sure that you can find a way to make those changes visual so you can show how the story changes and advances.